and then acquired a smaller purchasing first, kind of eliminate them. It's like grow a nest egg, and then like 4 times out of the year or once a quarter, I make a large purchase. And two big large purchases I want to do is one is the external video card, and the next is the Xbox, because the Xbox I can put on my large screen TV, my smart TV there, 4K TV, and Xbox One S has the 4K tech built into it, and it would allow me to run Twitch on the television, which my TV can only run YouTube, and it has a couple other apps, but I only really watch YouTube. And then Twitch isn't on Roku. YouTube is. So on the big screen I can only watch YouTube, but I just started watching Twitch about 2 weeks ago because Quissy moved her stream over to Twitch. So did Alkalon. And I've been watching Twitch a lot the last 2 weeks, and I've had the ability to stream to Twitch and YouTube on the PS4, and so I've, even though my channel is really small, I decided to do that. To just do the initial stream on Twitch, and then the subsequent streams you can do on YouTube, because Twitch has the ability to export directly to YouTube. And so I think that would be a great way to do it. Archive it. And then the cool thing with Twitch is you can play regular music on Twitch, since if you don't archive every single stream, then you can then because the videos are only up on Twitch for 12 days, so by the time they research your video and say, hey, you got a copyright strike, your video will be off there, right? So that's why you see a lot of people on Twitch. They can play like regular music and stuff, and I think it would be better, and that way I can use my YouTube site more for videos, not necessarily storing streams. I like storing the streams, but since I've been finally been able to watch Twitch and study it, at least for the last 2 weeks, I kind of see it might be more beneficial to stream on there, because you definitely will make more money, even if you're a small time streamer, you know. So I think that might be the way to go. Here we go, we're completing some more of these quests. I didn't find it to be any difficult, or I didn't have any difficulty in finding my way around Zandalar. It was pretty easy. Just some are high levels, some are low levels, but the map was pretty good, pretty well laid out, I think. Or laid out pretty well, that it was easy to find things. One thing I do like with the way the game was launched today is that the Horde and Alliance are somewhat separated. So with the scope of what's happened in the larger world, it allows for tensions to die down. And it brings home the reality that it's not going to be a quick war. It's going to be a long war. And it's sort of, we're really in the pre-stages of it. So that's kind of what I got out of the first day. Not try to do everything at one time. which I know a lot of people would do. And one of the good things about separating Horde out from Alliance is that it gives people time to grow into their roles, into their levels, and learn all the new stuff. And then once you get into the actual battle part of the war, probably about 2-3 weeks from now, I think it's going to make a better experience. Now, when I tried to use my flying mount earlier, it didn't work. I mean, I could walk around, but I couldn't fly around with it. I don't know if that's a bug or I assume they designed it to be that way on purpose. Don't know why, but it's done that way on purpose. So, but I wasn't able to use my flying, but it doesn't bother me. I prefer to walk anyway. But I didn't hear anybody crying about that, so I guess most people felt that way too. Or I just didn't see people crying about it. Imagine a poor guy that's got a cellmate as a sour fang. He's got to listen to his boring soldier stories for the entire war. Yay. This was pretty cool. We had to beat down this Hydra dude. Hail Hydra. One thing that I'm going to show off here is this guy right here is a guard. They give you Fel guard, and what you do is it's in war mode. It's like the 4th thing you unlock, and you set him out and he guards your rear wherever you guard, so if more ads come in, he'll jump on those ads and he'll protect your flanks and stuff. Which the way I use my horde here is I keep my Void Walker as my defensive piece and have him set for defense, so if someone comes to attack me, he'll pull them away and attack them. And I have my talent trees set up so I'm using Doom, because Doom is basically your taunt, and it's a special, I call it a special case type of taunt that has a damage effect should the battle go that long, which if you think about it is fulfills the same thing as most games where you have once an enemy is down past 30% health, you get the special attack, which they combine it into one power, which is called Doom, which has kind of always been that way. But allows you to focus all your horde on one guy, or multiple guys if you want. But if you set it up right, you can do multiple people. But I don't really go to that extent. It's better just to combine arms and destroy one guy and get to the next guy. Combine 5 powers, way to go. But the guard there, once you get all your offensive pieces up, you can use all your main demons, the Vile Fiend, the Bomber attack, which is the AoE attack, the Fel guard, and the was it the Fel Lord, And then there's the one where you activate the gate, which brings all the demons in from the netherworld. And for every shard you use while that guy's activated, it activates more demon lords for you. So if you combine that with war mode, you get a lot of really cool powers with demonology, which I think is well worth being ganked by some alliance guy. My problem with PvP and war mode isn't being ganked. The thing that I dislike with World of Warcraft is someone ganks you because you're only allowed to chat to horde people or alliance people. You can't talk crap to someone after they killed you. Which you know, even if you're lying in the dirt dying, you should be able to talk crap to the guy that killed you, right? It's just the way games are. I think the game would be better served if when I'm dying, I can at least tell the guy to kiss off. I hate you as I go to my death, you know? I'll be back. You know, that kind of stuff. That's the thing. So we made quick work of these guys. I really loved it. Now the way I set up my toolbar there, I like to be a little more organized. I set up all my so I call them utility stuff like gateways and teleport gates and little healthstone stuff at the bottom there. Those are for raid stuff. Above that are all my defensive stuff, which is there are 2 stun, anti-stun powers. One's an anti-magic power. And then those 2 open blocks there is normally where I keep my trinkets. Which I don't have any real trinkets with this guy yet, so I'm still working on it. And then my Will of the Forsaken I keep over there. And then my main toolbar, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10, or 0. Are all my offensive abilities, and then I always put my hand-to-hand weapon in the minus button, and I always put the wand in the or range weapon in the plus slot. And then on the left side there, I have all my powers that buff or augment the pets over there. You see there's a resolve, health funnel, fear, and fury. Those are crowd control powers. Banish is a crowd control power. And then I have my master demon call button there, so I can call the different demons. It's usually Voidwalker. And then to the right of that are all the main demons, the Vile Fiend, the Bomber Bats, the Felguard, which I took as a talent. Now, I like either that one or the one that randomly spawns them, but I think the Felguard one is, if you're looking to have more control over your demons without them randomly spawning, which sometimes is good, but sometimes it sucks. I'd rather be able to control, because my experience, you only use the Felguard really for a short period of time. And I'd rather have the Void Walker out because he's more tankier. And it's a better defensive piece than the Felguard. You only really need the Felguard for short periods of time in a battle anyway. So if you really need more offensive power, you can always just call up a Felguard, and that would give you 2 Felguards. And then the I call it the demon commander there power, and then the little one where you bring them in from the nether realm, nether gate there, and then the other one there, which is the demon lord guard, that's a cool power too. So he's an AoE power too. So they're all, the master demons are up top, and then the spam demons are down at the bottom. So I'd always slot Doom first, and then that's my attack order there. I always try Doom, Shadow Bolt, and Demon Bolt. And but I only use Demon Bolt when it lights up. I don't like to individually cast it. And then the one that drives the imps, or all the demons, to explode. I had that set up, so those are my 3 main offensive powers. Doom is really a taunt, special taunt, and then you normally spam the Hand of Gul'dan, and then I only, because I have it set up, my talent, I don't have it where the Fellhounds light up. I like to cast them manually myself when I need them. So, because that costs 2 shards. 3 and 2. And then the health, healing, and then I move the command demon and Io Kilrock down below because I didn't really have any place to put them. So I put them there. There are just 2 open slots. And then that's why they're there. And then the demon power, which in this case is the if your health drops below 30%, you hit that little button there and it jacks up your armor. And if you hit the resolve button too, it makes you harder to kill. Which I only really use those when like special cases anyway. For the most part, I found demonology, you pretty much spam Hand of Gul'dan. And Fellhounds. Now I see people crying out there about the 2-minute cooldown on a Felgar. I don't really see that as a problem because the way I have it set up there on the right is I do it all in order. So even if that demon's not available, one or the other, 6 are going to be available. So see, now when you put the portal out, you got to make sure for every shard you use, the little, I call them other special demons, come out, and that's what that gate does, which is kind of cool. Now if you use the talent that randomly spawns demons for you, which is Wild Imps, Fellhounds, it randomly calls up a special demon for you, so that might be worth it too. But I like to have control over what demons show up on the battlefield as the commander of the little horde there. So, as I said, this second hour was a little quieter than the first. The first hour had a lot of action going on, a lot of cutscenes going on. But this chapter was more of a utility type chapter. But it allows you to see some of the early parts of the town. You get into some of the local politics, dealing with the people. You get to learn about these dark sectors, which I think may be important as you go explore the land a little more. You deal with these 2 guys, which are really, they're politically opposed to each other. She's obviously allied with the government. This other guy's allied with the king. You get the sense that they're opposing each other. Now, I'm always going for stuff that improves mastery and stuff that improves haste. But, now me, I consider myself a warlock. And I use demonology, destruction, and affliction when it's necessary for whatever I'm doing. Now, I don't know if later on we're going to get the other two stuff from the Azeroth stuff, because right now I only got the stuff that's particular to demonology, but are we going to get the other stuff too at some point? If that's the case, then that would be pretty cool. Because you can max out one and then be good in all three. I would like to be good in all three aspects. I don't like being pigeonholed in only one as a player. Because you can always go to a bank and change out your gear, I mean, when necessary. So, I was noticing that versatility is missing from the stat window there, but I think it has to do it because this character started off with like free gear because it was boosted. So I had to find gear with versatility. But as I'm selecting my gear going through these grinding missions, I lean more, since I'm demonology anyway, I'm leaning more towards haste and mastery. You really want, I feel you want more critical strike if you're destruction. And I feel you want more versatility if you're affliction. See what I'm saying? So, with all three aspects of Warlock, I feel as a player that haste is definitely you need for all of it, because you can cast things faster. But supplemental to that, or actually complementary to that, is you want, depending on what you are, with demonology, you want mastery because it improves your pets. For destruction, you want critical strike because it improves your extra damage, which you kind of want that with demon destruction. But with affliction, since you're a dot master, versatility affects your ability to do what I call real damage and not extra damage, your mass damage. And yeah, I think you would want that for somebody that does stuff over time. You want to improve the capacitative the capacity and not necessarily the rate. And because you can cast individual spells faster with affliction. Now, even though I like demonology more, it's a little slower than affliction. Destruction is a little more powerful, but it takes longer to cast stuff with destruction. But affliction, I think, is the balance of the two, because I feel that demonology is more tankier. I feel that destruction is more DPS, or less tankier. And I feel affliction gives you the best of both worlds. It's not great at tanking, and it's not great at destruction or damage, but one thing that affliction allows you to do is move as a warlock. And you can cast stuff while you're moving, which if you're walking around in war mode, it might be more advantageous to be affliction. But when you start getting into dungeons and raids and quests, demonology I think is a little bit better in that you can survive a lot of things. You can get hit a lot and survive it with demonology. And you can absorb a lot of damage as demonology that you couldn't really do with affliction or destruction, because it's really your demons that are taking all the damage, right? And the way Soul Link works is the more demons you have in the field, the more healing you're going to have, because every demon out there, you're going to get stronger because you're tied to all of them. You're soul linked. And so that's kind of good. Now, I've been playing with Warlock now with all the changes for BFA, at least for 3 weeks now. Even though I got the Battle for Azeroth last Wednesday, the changes were put in during the pre-patch, which was, about 2 weeks ago. And I kind of like it. It's a little more streamlined. Um, it's a little easier. There's less buttons that the class takes up. Off to the right there, I always have my like health stones, soul stones, and potions. My eating powers and all my professions are usually off to the right. Health stone are over there, and my pets are over there, which is kind of cool. One thing that I plan to do in BFA is play my alts a little more. I actually have a lot of alts, but all of them are mostly warlocks. But when I originally set up my characters on Dalaran, my intention was to have a different warlock for each of the races. And then I wanted to set up, when I originally set up my characters on the Fighting Risk server, I wanted them all to be Alliance. And then when I moved over to, I forget what the name of the server was, but I had a Horde on another. And then I wanted to eventually have a server where I had different classes on those. So, but I never really got around to doing any of that. Other than I did set up all the warlocks for the different races on the Dalaran server, but I haven't really played them. So, because I really got into the Forsaken stuff, and to me that's the part of the story and the lore that fascinates me the most about World of Warcraft. They're the ones I care about the most in the story. Sorry, Alliance, I don't care about you. What's weird about the Azeroth story with Magni Bronzebeard is that he said in I'm coming up to the second hour mark, so I'll be able to continue on with the story, but he told the Horde that using the Azeroth was dangerous and it could result in the death of Azeroth herself. But then he didn't say that to the Alliance. He basically like gave them a free license to study Azeroth, like it was their right to do it, and it was basically, well, the Horde shouldn't even have it. He made it because he's an Alliance lover. And then now he's, you go and close all those fissures at the beginning of the story, and for Battle of Azeroth, and then he hands you the, or actually, Azeroth hands you the heart of Azeroth and says, here, go gain power and help save me, which is kind of like a 180 from what he's told Sylvanas in Before the Storm, when you really think about it. You know, here, this could kill everybody, but I want you to go gain power. It didn't make any sense when you really start to think about it. But when you look at it from the Forsaken point of view, so what if they kill off all life on the planet? The Forsaken will still be alive. Right? And even if the planet is completely destroyed, what do the Forsaken care? They're dead already, right? They don't care about being alive. They are Forsaken. Nobody cares about us. That's basically what they're saying. Like, look at Anduin. He was all about the Forsaken. Let's help out the Forsaken. And Before the Storm, and then 2-3 weeks later, he's invading the city. You know? I kind of feel that Sylvanas is right. The Alliance sues for peace when it's convenient for them, or there's a military advantage in doing so. They only sued for peace because the Horde got the Azeroth first. They didn't know anything about what Azeroth was until Magni Bronzebeard told them. Then they didn't have any access to it. So they moved all their military assets around and placed them in a way that they felt the Horde wouldn't realize what they were doing militarily wise, while they increased their spy operation in Kalimdor, which the Horde was completely aware of and used to their advantage. And then the whole reason why the Alliance moved their naval assets from Darnassus to off the coast of Silithus there, or is it Bellwood, is because they wanted to strategically place their military assets so if necessary they could occupy Silithus, you know, and have access to Azeroth. But Sylvanas had already figured all that out. And so she closed their access off to all that immediately. And she wiped out Darnassus in the process while using IS-7 to report back to the Alliance, which I thought was pretty cool. We're coming up to the end of the second hour. Gonna have to pause Premiere here while it hits the end marker here. Alright, here we are on the flip side of the third hour break. We're still continuing on. This is going to be a slower story pace. It's only really about 37 minutes left in this segment. And then I have a whole another video which I have to record hopefully by the end of the night. But we're definitely getting to see demonology. Those of you that might be concerned that about having a boosted Warlock, I really didn't see too much variance, and one that would have been ground up all the way from level 1. It's a nice part to jump off. All the gear is new. So, and it's true, any gear that you had prior to this expansion, you can pretty much just throw away. Won't do you any good, and because you don't have the Azeroth, doesn't matter anyway. And Azeroth looks like it improves your secondary stats and primary stats more than specific equipment. So we'll see how that works. I don't necessarily like staffs as a warlock, but I prefer daggers. But as I've been studying all the different weapons, staffs tend to have both haste and mastery. Whereas daggers tend to have critical strike and sometimes haste, but mostly critical strike and versatility. And the other weapons like sword, it's something other than a staff. Tend not to have mastery and haste together. It's usually one or the other. So for demonology, that's not going to do us any good. Now, one thing of having to use Battle for Azeroth is that none of my add-ons work. They haven't been updated yet, so I haven't been using Pawn. And I grew up with World of Warcraft, and by the saying grew up, I mean from the time I was 24. I was 24 when Warcraft came out, and I was in my 30s when World of Warcraft came out. So, I mean, the character itself, growing with a character in the game from level 1 to high end, I never really used add-ons until recently. I think they're a little convenient, but I think you help yourself out more as a player if you really know what mastery does and versatility does versus letting a computer software do it for you. One thing I do like with Pawn is it quickly identifies things for you. But I think you still need to be able to look at what the data is actually telling you versus just, oop, I see green, pick that. You know. So the last 3 weeks I haven't, or 2 weeks at least, I haven't really been using add-ons. So you don't really need add-ons, but they do make it a little fun, and for someone viewing at home, it helps them to see what's going on. But for demonology, I don't think it's important to have any of those things. I do like Skada, but I think as the years go on, it's very hard for some of these smaller software companies that make these add-ons to keep up, because they're only having to really deal with something every 3 years. You know, they're not really getting paid to do it, so it's very tough to keep up with that demand over a long period of time. This is where we went down and discovered the dark magic here in this area. I gave 10 gold to those people basically living out in the street, I guess, who they are. Desolate people. But as I was saying about staffs, I've come to really learn that although I don't like staffs, they're kind of the proper weapon for the Warlock. Someone was alluding to it in one of their videos I saw the other day, where they said something about wood allows the mages or warlocks to focus their energy. And that's really what the staff does. Kind of like Jaina focused her magic through the ship, the wooden ship, which was essentially her staff, and so forth. Witch Doctor Jayla. I have a feeling that Greymane and Valen are gonna start to become extinct in the lore because there's no real purpose for them in the story now. I mean, Valen's a cool character and all, but a lot of Burning Crusades, Wrath of the Lich King, Pandaria, and Warlords of Draenor focused around, and even Legion focused around Valen's people, right? So, not that they beat it to death, but I mean, the story needs to move away from that. I kind of like that in this expansion, even starting with Before the Storm, is they really brought the story back to the Forsaken. And why that's interesting to me is because if you really study Warcraft 3 as a story, Warcraft 3 is told in two parts. You have the initial part, which deals with the orcs, and how the orcs... Thrall wakes up, has this dream, and the prophet tells him to go to Kalimdor, and that's where he finds the new horde. And parallel to that, in the second half of Warcraft 3, they deal with the Forsaken. And it's the story of Sylvanas, the fall of Silvermoon, how the High Elves were wiped out, why they were wiped out, how they come back, how the Forsaken come back, how they're basically treated as tools for first by Arthas, then by the Alliance, and so forth. Even the humans that had helped the Forsaken win their war. One of the reasons why Sylvanas wiped them out is those guys were scoundrels. They weren't really... They didn't really see helping the Forsaken out as hey, let's do this for the benefit of mankind kind of thing. They did it for, hey, we can get rich. And when we win, we're gonna have this huge payday because we're gonna get to rule this land. And that's why Sylvanas killed them. You know. For her, mainly because she died. And that's when you find her necklace at the Windrunner Spire. One of the psychological effects of that, why she has a hard time with that when you bring her the necklace, is because she died in the... That's the part where she died, or place where she died. And the necklace is not only the place, it's the moment she died. It reminds her of all those things, which she hates the most. And for Sylvanas, if you're really following her story in the lore, she felt that the Alliance betrayed them, and she felt that the humans betrayed the elves, and especially, again, Greymane, which is why she takes great joy in wiping out the Ghanaians in Cataclysm. Because she felt the Ghanaians betrayed them, you know, and they isolated themselves off from the rest of the world. And even if they were right in what they were doing, the humans failed to band together when it was necessary, and Sylvanas felt that that's why the High Elves were wiped out. And when the humans were wiped out in Warcraft 2, they went to Lordaeron, and it was the elves that came to them, helped them. And then when, a couple years later, when it was their turn to help the elves, they didn't do it. And so, that's kind of the pathology of the character, where even Anduin kind of acknowledges it in Before the Storm. Even Barisa acknowledged it in the book War Crimes. It's what I was alluding to in the first hour of the video here, was that no one in the Alliance really knows what happened to the Forsaken under Arthas. And that's kind of why there's this huge disconnect between the Alliance and the Forsaken. And I think that chasm had never really been explored in the lore until before the storm. I'm kind of glad that they did, but I feel that before the storm only scratched the surface of the problem. And I think that the Alliance has never really acknowledged what had happened to the Forsaken. And I think part of the problem is that they don't know what happened. Even Marisa Windrunner didn't know what happened to her own sister. And when she's talking with Sylvanas in War Crimes, it's one of the things that Marisa says. And it isn't until Sylvanas reminds her what had happened that she even gave it a thought. Because, well, by the time War Crimes comes around, it's been, what? Over 5 years, about 7, 8 years since what happened to the Forsaken, since that took place. And there was a 5-year period of time between Warcraft 3 and Wrath of the Lich King. There's a 3-year period of time between the end of Warcraft 3 and what happens in World of Warcraft, the classic World of Warcraft. And if you ever read the book Cycle of Hatred, that explains what happens in that time period and leads to the events of classic World of Warcraft. Which that's why in the cinematic for Battle of Azeroth, it's the first thing Sylvanas says. Ours is a Cycle of Hatred, which is the first book in the World of Warcraft lore. Not the Warcraft lore, but the World of Warcraft lore. Sort of what begins all the novels. And I'm hoping that Blizzard really goes deeper into, from the Alliance side of the war, really, at least for characters like Anduin Wrynn, and even maybe Jaina or not Varissa Windrunner, but Lyria Windrunner, really show what happens. I think it's important for their characters to acknowledge what happened to the Forsaken. And I feel that Before the Storm kind of alluded to it in the letter that Anduin Wrynn wrote to Sylvanas Windrunner. But I think if you know what really happened to them, you really can understand the pathology of why. That would kind of upset Sylvanas Windrunner. Might be hard for someone that's never been through a traumatic event to understand why that would make someone like Sylvanas angry. Is because you have to understand that the character died. She was murdered. Not only was she murdered, and was painfully murdered, her body, her spirit was ripped away from her body. Her body was placed in a box, separated. She wasn't allowed to die. And then her spirit, which became the Banshee, was used to kill 99% of her the High Elves are dead because of her. Her spirit was used to kill all those people. She killed her parents. She killed her king. She killed all the people in Silvermane. Arthur used her to kill all those people, to wipe them out, so that they could use the Sun Whale to resurrect. What's it? Is it kill Jaden? They were trying to rest. I think so. But demon that Queen Azara fell in love with. Basically. I get it mixed up, but anyway. Just the trauma alone to Sylvanas, the initial trauma which they showed in Warbringers, the dying part, is a very traumatic event. But when you put all the other traumatic events, the body being ripped away, the then her spirit being used to kill all those people, and one at a time, that's a huge traumatic event. And then no one on top of that, these were people who swore their life to the Alliance, and the Alliance didn't come to help them. And then after they won their independence from Arthas and the Dreadlords, they were met by violence by the Alliance. What Anduin wrote in his letter was, you were turned away, but that's kind of a really minor sugarcoating what was actually done, because her people were killed, her emissaries were murdered, and how she ended up beating Arthas in Warcraft 3 was with an army of Murlocs, an army of undead, and a bunch of mercenaries that she had to lie to. She ended up killing all those mercenaries, murdering them. And then she had to get the demons to help her overthrow I want to say kill Jaden and Zagaris, but Zagaris was more for the leader of the Burning Legion and his crusade, but kill Jaden, Mothras, and who's the other one? They were all the lords underneath him.
Come back and barter sometime.
So, but that's why the Forsaken are called the Forsaken. Because up until they were invited into the Horde, which occurs after Warcraft 3 and the period leading up to World of Warcraft, they were rejected by a lot of people. So I'm just kind of happy that the story as a whole has kind of cycled back to that. Kind of getting away from what happened to the Draenei, which what happened to the Draenei and the Orcs in the Outland was terrible. This was kind of a cool quest here with the turtle.
On occasion, I have even been known to partake in a tussle or even fisticuffs.
The guy doing the voice for that character is the same guy that did the voice for Archbishop Fowl. I can hear the actor. Looks like some of the streamers are starting to sign off on Twitch. So I kind of knew to go. I could see early on that you had to go up
Why don't you try
to
again?
right and come down, but I went the other way just to see what all these controls did. For some reason, the turtle got stuck at a 45 degree. Okay. So I wanted to see if there was a way around that. Then, since I ended up having to do it again, I just went the fast way. Up to right and down.
Easy enough, right, hero? Now, can you guide Low to the treasure and then to the gold without crossing the path he's taken? Well done, hero.
I found when I first came to this spot and I was looking at these quests, I had some apprehension in doing them because I didn't want to get sidetracked. Because I knew I need to go talk to that one guy in the north. But as I did that little turtle thing, it went pretty quickly. So then I decided to go back and talk to this other guy to do the thing with getting these, I guess there were scrolls back. And it did take a while to do them, but they weren't hard missions. Just a matter of standing in the right spot and clicking on the dude as they walk by you. So overall, this area near the dock didn't really take all that long. I didn't feel it took all that long. About what, 2 hours? 2 hours. And it was entertaining. You did learn stuff about the city. You learned stuff about the politics, both at the high level where the king is at and the lower level where the poorest people in the population are at. Kind of got a sense of what their attitudes were towards the king, towards the government. You kind of get the sense that there's a struggle between the king and the government. And that's always the case with most stories like these. Even with this, I watch a lot of on the internet, YouTube. I watch this show called Time Team, which is about these archaeologists or anthropologists. It's a show, and they study a lot of history of the Great Britain, and some of it centers around the United States too, which is the English coming over to Jamestown and stuff, or Marystown, and so when I get to learn parts of the history of the different lands that we go to in the game, I find that fascinating. To me, that's the best part of World of Warcraft. Azeroth as a whole. Like this is on my main horde character on the Dalaran server. I just got to Pandaria in the last 2 weeks. I've been in Outland and doing all the Cataclysm lore, and I closed those out about 2 weeks ago finally, and now I'm in Pandaria, and so I finished the Jaded Forest area, Pandaria. Now I'm in the Valley of the Blossoms, whatever, something. And it's been pretty fun. Certainly different, but it's kind of a interesting being a place that's different from the Eastern Kingdom in Kalimdor. One thing I have noticed as I've played Horde more in the last 2 years is that the Horde side of the game, to me, the stories are more interesting. From a story point of view, there's more. I feel because a lot of the Horde aren't really humanoids. The Forsaken are humanoids, but they're undead. Yeah, you have a Tauren, you have Orc, trolls, goblins, blood elves, which technically are humanoid, and Forsaken, and now Pandarians, which are just big bears. No one in the Horde is really a human, and it's interesting that their cultures are very different than human culture. Which, if you look at their towns, they're wood, their canvas, their technology. They use the air. They use a lot more elements in their technology. Whereas, if you go to the Eastern Kingdom, where the humans are, all their stuff are stone buildings. They use steel technology. Kind of like old world Europe. It's very human, very human structure, and even their mannerisms and behaviors are very human, which is really, if you consider there were 3 main human areas in Eastern Kingdom, and 2 of the 3 areas have been wiped out. There's only one real human area, which is Stormwind, which technically was wiped out in Warcraft 2, but it was rebuilt. And I find the stories with the Horde a little more fascinating. And if you're playing as a role player, like I do, I kind of embrace the Forsaken. I like studying the Forsaken. I understand from a psychological and anthropological aspect of the culture and the people. I feel that Sylvanas' evaluation when Sourfang asked her, "What do you think, War Chief?" in the story Good War, and she actually tells him that I can't read it word for word. I'll do it in maybe the next hour. But she says something to the effect of, even though the orcs have had their freedom, the humans still blame them for Stormwind being sacked. And no matter how much they try to mend those relations will never heal. She knows that the Ghanaians will never forgive the Forsaken for wiping out Ghanaian. When the king's son dying, that'll never be forgiven. There will never be a moment in the future that will ever come to pass. She knows that the Alliance looks at the Forsaken as just squatters at Lordaeron, and she reasoned that it's only a matter of time before they come up with a reason to completely remove them, and they could, because there's nothing that the Horde could do to counter that in time. And much of the north, except for the humans, don't see the Blood Elves as really potential allies. They only really see them as a stopgap, you know, in case a war breaks out between the Horde and the Alliance. But these Blood Elves have never forgiven the humans for allowing their city to be wiped out, allowing their people to be wiped out. And going back to the Night Elves, the split between the Night Elves and the High Elves occur in the whole stuff that happens with Queen Azara. And the way I understand it, and I think I had this wrong, but the way I understand it is that when Azara was plotting her marriage there with, who is it, Kel'Jaeden? Anyway, Tyrande, Whisperwind, Malfuri and Stormrage, and Illidan rebelled against her. And I believe the High Elves were the ones who stayed allied to the Queen. So when all that occurred and the land was broken apart, the High Elves were outcast by the Night Elves, and that's really what creates the rift. And the High Elves had to take refuge, which was the northern part of Eastern Kingdom, which was controlled by trolls. And so they felt that they were left to die, fend for themselves. And so, like Azara was drowned beneath the waves. So the burning of Tedrassil really goes back to that moment in High Elves. The High Elves never forgave the Night Elves, and they hated the Night Elves. And the wiping out of the High Elves only reinforced their hatred for the Night Elves. And I think symbolically that's why Sylvanas burned that tree down, which I believe is, my speculation is why Azara, there's only one other person other than Sylvanas that wanted to burn that tree down, and that was Queen Azara. Coming up to the final minutes of this segment. I'm going to let this play out a little before we go to the next segment. Alright, here we go. I had intended to end the video right there at that little segment, but as I went and reviewed the next segment of video, there's only like 20 minutes left. So I decided to tack it on to the end of the video, and I wanted to use this video to do some experimenting around with Adobe Premiere and Media Encoder. And what I did is I took the AVI files and I converted them over to the MP4 files, so they'll be a little bit smaller. And then I dropped them into the production to see what the effect would be. And then I added the last 20 minutes onto the video, and want to see what the quality looks like when I go port it to YouTube. It looks really good in Premiere. So trying to find a more swifter way of getting the video productions out from the PC. That's both good quality and can get up to YouTube really quickly versus a long time. If you convert the videos for the HD stuff, it can take, especially a 2-3 hour video, can take like 6-7 hours to process, and then it takes a long time to get it up on YouTube. And then Adobe Premiere, as I was working on this video last night or early this morning, I kept crapping out, and so after I came back home from work, I dropped it in the media encoder and converted the AVI file over to an MP4 file, so it's a little bit smaller file than what an AVI file is, and then I can delete those AVI files and recycle some of my hard drive space. And I'm using an external hard drive, so it's not my main hard drive, and that's what I use for video editing. But I like to reclaim the space. And then I'm hoping that this turns out very well, because if I can port it as an MP4 and then record the sound on top of that, the voiceover, then it's a much smaller video to process to get it in the format for YouTube. And if it's a smaller video, meaning how much space, memory space it takes up, then it'll port to YouTube a little bit quicker. And the video quality looks really good. That I'm looking into playback for Premiere, so I need to see what it looks like when I port it up to YouTube. But here we are. I'm finishing up the tail end of my quests here, and I ended up walking all the way back to the king. I'm more of a slower type traditional game player, grinder. When I play World of Warcraft, and I alluded to this early in the video, is that I prefer to take my time, go to a quest giver, and walk around and do the quest. I'm not really a power leveler. I don't like power leveling. To me, I find it boring to do power level. I know some people love it, but I hate just running around doing the quick stuff, and people don't actually read what's going on in the lore or the story. And when you go to all these like dungeons and stuff, they tend not to know what's going on in the dungeon. And I feel it makes for a better game player when they know what's going on in the server. At least in the lore. That's my opinion, and I feel that way. I can't run through any of these type of games. I have to take my time. And I say that as my character is running on screen there, but I mean that in sort of a power leveling way. I don't really want to go power level the character to 120 in the first night of launch, because you have like what, 1,000 days till like 1,097 days till the next expansion comes out, which is what, 3 years. Why would you go play the entire expansion in one night? 4 hours, 5 hours? What are you gonna do for the next 1,000 days? Do the same thing over and over again? Isn't that silly? And there's the first people who complain that there's nothing to do. Well, if you took your time, actually read the story, read the quest. You know, there's plenty of times to do dungeons and stuff. Just follow the roadmap that the game designers laid out, and you can do it. Explore everything within the next 3 years. I mean, that's just silly. In my opinion, it's just silly. But, I intend to grind my other horde character who is on the Delaran server. But she's only 97 right now, and she's still over in Pandaria, which now that I've added this character on, who's sort of where the lore is at, as far as the expansion timeline. I intend to play this character on a daily level, so I can explore all the new stuff, but I plan to play the other character on Sunday nights when I do like the past quest stuff. And so I'm slowly leveling that character. I made a Forsaken Shadow Priest a while back, but she's still stuck in the Cataclysm era timeline, so it's like a brand new character. So she won't be high level anytime soon. I used my boost on this character, so I don't have any. I still have a level 100 boost, but I might use that for an alliance character. But my main alliance character, Warlock, is in the 80s, so that character's been around since World of Warcraft came out, so she's still in the Cataclysm stuff too, so just starting the Cataclysm stuff. So she's got quite a ways to go till she gets to these areas. It's like we got about 15 minutes left. This clip. So just gotta turn in all these small quests so I can report back to the king. I had intended to record this session, process it for YouTube to see how long it took, and then be playing tonight, but it's taken longer than I had planned to get the video production all together. But I haven't continued playing the game beyond what you see on the clips, so but since I play slower, I plan to only play in 1 hour, 2 hour sessions on a daily basis, and then so I can get the videos processed. For me, that's more productive because I still have to play World of Warcraft. I mean, World of Tanks, World of Warships. I still have to do Star Trek Online. I still got all the stuff I have to do with the DC Universe Online. And Star Trek Bridge Crew. So there's plenty of time to play through these stories, and I intend to go through them a little slower than most people. For now, until we can get the here we're back at the lore giver here.
Come back and barter sometime.
This is the lady. She wanted us to go get the little scrolls, and then we had to go kill this little demon dude in this disguise, which was kind of cool. To talk more about Warlock, I don't really try to write or produce a how-to play Warlock. I prefer my videos to be here's how I play Warlock, and if it can help other people, that's cool. But I personally like a lot of the changes that they made to Warlock, and I've played Warlock through most of all the different versions throughout the years, and I still miss the I prefer Warlock when we had the bag and we collected shards, because that's kind of really what a Warlock does. They collect souls. And then through the collection of souls, they use those souls to give them power. And I get the concept of the 5 lights, but I prefer having a bag of soul shards as opposed to the 5 light system. But I can live in either version. I like the way my powers are set up. a little more organized. I don't have to keep track of as many powers as I used to. I like that. I'm just hoping with the Azeroth though, I'm not like locked into just playing demonology, because I like switching to the different specs when it's appropriate. There are times where demonology is very useful, and there are other times where switching to affliction is useful, or switching to destruction is useful as a warlock, I think. And I'm hoping that at some point as we're going through to level 120, I can get different, because initially we were given an option of 103 different type of Azeroth thing. The necklace there of Heart of Azeroth. So hoping we can get the other two at some point and power those up. Here we are, coming up to the last 10 minutes. Most of our last part is just cleaning up. It's got some loose ends, but we got to explore the lower part of this dock area of the town, which I liked. We learned a lot about the politics, about what's going on. We know a little bit better insight of what's going. It's from a story point of view because we're role players. We have a better understanding of the politics down at the what I call the peasant level, the everyday folks in town, and we have a sense of at the king's level and all the lord levels. We have a really good understanding of the difference between the government and the king and the princess and so forth. The political fallout of past decision from the Horde. But coming into this story, the Horde's in a much better position allying with the Zandalari than from what I've seen going on in the Alliance. And I haven't really played the Alliance, so I only see like the cutscenes on YouTube from the different streamers. And, dealing with the story with Jaina Proudmoore and stuff, the Alliance has a much further hill to climb because they actually, like the Forsaken and the High Elves, they left the town of Theramore hanging in the third war with the orcs. Jaina stood aside and let Thrall and Vexar kill her father, and the kill Torrens, whatever. They didn't appreciate that. They thought the Alliance betrayed them, left their people to die. And I don't know. They alluded to earlier when we went to talk to Blightcaller on the ship that the Horde was politically in talks with the Kiltoran or Jaina's people. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but your people are the Kiltoran. So but they're the only other human settlement on Azeroth, Azeroth, that the Alliance can withdraw from if Stormwind should fall. If Stormwind were to fall, there's nowhere really for the humans to go. All the lands in the north are all blighted, and there's dead people walking around, undead walking all around the northern part of Eastern Kingdom. No real living person can settle in those areas. Even if they chase the Forsaken out, they can't live in that area. Humans. It's deadly to them. And it's interesting. For all the good that the Alliance claim to do, they're hated more than the Horde is in the larger world. Which is funny. even my experience when I'm going through the Pandarian stuff now, I get a sense that the Horde get along better with the Pandarian. Even though Hellscream was kind of an idiot, they saw that that was just him and not the other people were the same way. So, now because I'm Forsaken, I kind of agree with Sylvanas. So, here we are at the end of the video. We'll be moving on.
By whose authority do you address me?
Yeah, I turned it in, the king stuff. Now I'm doing this other guy's stuff. I know he's against us, but you should always go ahead and try to establish some political relations with people, even if you don't like them. It's like at a job. You may not like certain people, but they're there. They're part of this kingdom. You might as well at least understand the world through their view. But I was kind of excited to see Bane in this story. I kind of... I'm not really a Bane fan, but I think he's one of the better people to be on an expedition like this. You know? I feel sorry for Sao Frang, but at the same time, he created his own situation. If he had just killed Malfuri and Stormwind, the World Tree would still be alive. This is where I logged out. I had to figure out if this was a place where I could get experience. I was playing without any XP bonus with the characters, so I figured by lagging out, it would give a nice long period of time where the character could get experience. By the time I finish processing these videos, that'll be so. Well, see you next time. Bye-bye.